My ex-wife didn't know I was the owner and demanded I leave, calling me names. Then came the next morning. Okay, this is my confession. I wasn't supposed to be there that night. It had been weeks since I showed up before closing, not because I was busy, but because something in me couldn't bear being seen anymore, not even in my own place. There was a shame to it, this quiet ownership, like I'd bought something I wasn't worthy of, like putting on a tailored coat you found at a thrift store, too heavy in the shoulders, not really yours. But I came in anyway, something pulled me, maybe loneliness, maybe masochism. Maybe some part of me hoped just being there would make me feel real again. The bar looked the same as always, dim lighting that soaked into the walls like old secrets, the hum of tired conversation, wood that had been scratched down to stories, everything still worn but warm. Lewis nodded when he saw me, a small gesture, no words, just enough to remind me I wasn't invisible. I slid into the far left booth, the one half hidden behind the beam where the light doesn't quite reach. It had become mine by habit, not by claim. It was where I could sit with a drink and vanish without ever leaving. The bourbon came without asking. Lewis knew I didn't sip it right away. Just held the glass, watching the amber catch the flicker of the TV above the bar, tuned low to some local game I didn't care about. The kind of night where everything moved in slow motion and nothing mattered until it did. I was halfway through my drink, nursing it like an open wound, when I heard the door swing open behind me. The noise didn't matter. What mattered was the scent that followed, vanilla and cold air, a trigger wired so deep in my brain it bypassed thought. Then the voice, not the words, just the cadence, sharp, confident. A sound that once felt like home, then like war. Amanda. I didn't even need to turn around. I knew her presence the way a body remembers pain. A tension filled the room immediately, at least in me. She always entered like she expected the world to orbit her, like gravity was a courtesy extended to her alone. She laughed high and unfiltered at something a man said near the bar. Her laugh hadn't changed, still that performative kind, full of edge, like she was testing the air around her. The kind of laugh that could light up a room or cut right through it. It used to thrill me, used to make me feel like I was winning something. Now it made my skin feel 2 sizes too tight. I pulled my cap lower over my eyes, turned my face to the wall. I could have left, should have, but I didn't. There was something paralyzing in the moment, not fear, something else, like being stuck between time zones in your own memory, like hearing a song that once played during the worst night of your life. I just sat there, hands around the glass like it was the only thing holding me together. I watched her in the mirror behind the bar. Watched her command the space, the way she tilted her head, flicked her hair, threw words into the air like confetti. She hadn't changed much, maybe a little thinner, a little harder in the eyes. She wore a coat too big for her, some man's probably, and red boots that clashed with the rest of her outfit. I used to tell her she looked good in red. She used to roll her eyes and say, I look good in everything. She didn't see me at first, or if she did, she didn't register it. It was only after another drink, or maybe 2, that she turned her full attention my way. I felt it before I saw it. That laser focus she used to save for fights and foreplay. Oh, you, she said. No name, just accusation. She walked over slow, swaying slightly. Her expression twisted somewhere between amusement and disgust. What the fuck are you doing here? Her voice dropped an octave when she was angry, always had. Like she was trying to control the storm, not unleash it. It never worked. Oh, I'm just sitting. Oh, just sitting, she repeated, mocking. You think you can just be in the same space as normal people now? Oh, I didn't answer, she hated that. You're not supposed to be here, she said, louder now, eyes scanning the room for an audience. You think just because we used to fuck that gives you access to my spots. This isn't your spot, I said quietly. That pushed her over. She stepped closer, leaned into the booth, voice low but sharp. You're poison, you know that, fucking radioactive. You ruin every room you step into, everyone feels it, look around. Oh, I didn't. She turned to Lewis and raised her voice. Why the fuck is he here? He shouldn't be here, he makes people uncomfortable. He's a parasite, a fucking leech. Lewis looked at me uncertain. I gave him the smallest shake of my head, don't. Maybe I should talk to whoever owns this dump, she went on. Whoever runs this place should know there's a fucking creep in the corner. I could feel the blood draining from my face. Not from shame, from something deeper, some kind of grief I didn't have words for, she didn't know. After all this time, after everything, she didn't know. I had bought this bar 18 months ago. After the divorce was final and the apartment felt too hollow, I walked into this place one night just to escape the silence. The ceiling fan was broken and the beer was warm and the place was barely breaking even. The owner was burnt out and bitter, trying to unload it on someone foolish. I was foolish and lonely, and maybe a little desperate to anchor myself to something that couldn't walk away from me, so I bought it, quietly, no fanfare, just a name on a document, mine. I didn't tell anyone, not because I was ashamed, but because I needed one place that wasn't tangled up in who I used to be. A place where I didn't have to answer questions or pretend to be okay. I fixed it up piece by piece. Changed the menus, replaced the lights, repainted the bathrooms, replaced the broken ceiling fan. It became mine, slowly, secretly. And here she was, standing in the middle of it, calling me a ghost. She stared at me for a few more seconds like she was waiting for me to explode or shrink or cry. I did none of those things, I just let her walk away. I didn't even flinch when she left, just held onto the glass and listened to the door slam shut like a final note. The bar exhaled after she was gone. Conversations picked up again. Louis moved like nothing had happened. The world, as always, kept going, and I sat there still and silent like something in me had just finished dying. But it wasn't rage I felt, it wasn't even sadness, it was clarity. There's a moment when something breaks inside you, not loud, not catastrophic, just this quiet snap, like a string pulled too tight finally letting go. That was the moment, not because of what she said, but because she proved something I'd been afraid to admit for a long time. She never really saw me. Not then, not now, maybe not ever. And I realized I wasn't mourning the loss of her anymore. I was mourning the version of myself that needed her to see me at all. I didn't go back the next night. Didn't even think about it, not really. I just started walking sometime around dusk, no destination, just movement. There's a kind of numbness that comes after a moment like that, not a shock, not a dramatic spiral, just this quiet static in the chest that makes you feel like you're underwater. I needed the air. I needed to not be anyone. I walked past old storefronts, past couples laughing too loudly, past a man sitting on a milk crate playing something mournful on a rusted saxophone. The city smelled like rain and concrete and distant Greece. Everything familiar but dislocated, like looking at a childhood photo of a house that isn't yours anymore. The sidewalks were slick with old rain and newer footprints, and I remember thinking, everyone's always going somewhere, even if it's just away. I found myself in front of a 24-hour laundromat, the kind with buzzing lights and cracked linoleum floors. I stood outside for too long, hands in my pockets, watching the quiet choreography inside, an old woman folding baby clothes with the kind of tenderness I used to envy, a teenage girl asleep with her head resting on a dryer, a man packing in tight circles while a washing machine spun like it was hiding secrets. The whole place glowed in that sickly fluorescent light that makes everything feel exposed and unloved. I wondered if they were running from anything, if they had nights like mine. My phone buzzed once, then again, then more. I didn't check it. I knew who it was, or rather, I knew the types. Louis, maybe Steve, someone from the Tuesday regulars, the guy who plays darts alone. People who'd seen the scene last night, who weren't sure if checking in was solidarity or intrusion. I appreciated it. I couldn't return it. The screen kept lighting up in my pocket as I sat down on a bench across the street and pulled the collar of my jacket up. I wasn't cold, I was just porous, like I couldn't keep the air out. I watched cars pass, each one a little story I'd never be part of. People going home, people leaving someone behind. I ended up sleeping in the backseat of my car, not because I had to, but because the thought of going back to my apartment felt unbearable. The stillness, the echo, the reminder, my apartment had become a kind of mausoleum for a version of me I didn't know how to bury. Our old couch, her favorite mug I couldn't throw away, the dent in the drywall from a fight we didn't talk about. I knew I'd walk in and remember everything I wasn't supposed to feel anymore. So the car, I reclined the seat, pulled a fleece blanket from the trunk, and listened to the silence between the passing engines. There was a low fog, the kind that makes the world feel further away than it is. The inside of the car fogged too, my breath making little temporary ghosts on the glass. I dreamt about her, of course. But not the bar, not the fight. I dreamt about a morning from years ago. We were lying on the floor of our first apartment. The heat had gone out, and we were wrapped in coats and laughter, sharing cheap red wine from the bottle, her head resting on my chest like she never wanted to be anywhere else. I remember how she said, "This is my favorite version of us." In the dream, I believed her. In the dream, I didn't know yet that some people love you in the moment, not in the long haul. I woke up with a crick in my neck and a weight on my chest that felt like something had settled there overnight. Not grief exactly, something more permanent, like disappointment that had fossilized, the kind you can't shake loose. The sun was coming up, bleeding soft orange across the skyline. The world was starting over again like it always does without asking permission. And I sat there in the gray light, realizing that Amanda still had that kind of power, the power to unravel me without lifting a finger. She had called me a parasite in my own bar and didn't flinch. That part hurt. But what twisted the knife deeper was knowing she hadn't even considered the possibility that I could own something. That I could be more than the man who failed her. That was the truth under the insult. She hadn't seen me, not really, not for a long time, maybe ever. The bar wasn't a grand gesture, it wasn't some cinematic act of redemption. It was quiet, intentional, something I built from dust and splinters because I needed something that wasn't attached to her shadow. I didn't tell her because I didn't want the story to be about her. But in that moment, it hit me she never even imagined I could do it, that I could rebuild. Maybe that's why she left. Or maybe she left because she needed someone else to be the villain. I made that too easy. By noon, I drove to the edge of the city, nowhere specific, just away. The radio was off. The windows down, I let the air in like it could scrape the memories out of me. I stopped for coffee at a place I'd never been, sat alone at a table that smelled like burnt toast and paper menus. The server didn't ask questions. She refilled my cup twice without comment. I almost cried from the kindness of it. There was something soothing in being a stranger. No history, no expectations, just a man with tired eyes and a black coffee. I pulled out my phone finally. Lewis had texted simply, "You okay?" No punctuation, just the question. I stared at it, my thumbs hovered. I didn't know what to say. I was okay, but I wasn't not okay either. I was in between, dislocated. Eventually I wrote back, "Yeah, I just needed some air." He didn't press. I think he understood. I didn't go back to the bar that night or the next. I needed space from it, not because I didn't love it, but because I needed to remember why I bought it in the first place. It had been my sanctuary, my rebuild, my secret place to feel like a person again. And Amanda had stepped in uninvited and spit venom like she had a right to. But maybe it wasn't her intrusion that wrecked me. Maybe it was my silence. Maybe I wasn't angry at her. Maybe I was angry at myself for letting her voice still matter, for sitting there quiet while she tried to erase me from my own narrative. But I wasn't erased, not anymore. Not after this. Something had cracked open and there was no closing it, no going back to invisibility. Something was about to change. I didn't know what yet. But I knew when I walked back through that bar door, it wouldn't be as the man in the shadows. It would be as the man who built the room. The bar looked different in the daylight. Most people only see it under the hush of low bulbs and liquor haze, after the sun drops and everything feels easier to say or forget. But I came in early before opening when the floors are still tacky from the night before and the air smells like bleach and limes and faint regret. There's a kind of truth in places before they wake up. No performance, just what's left behind. Lewis was behind the counter, restocking the liquor shelf. He looked up when I walked in, then looked back down. No big reaction, no concerned look, just a quiet nod like he'd been expecting me. "You good?" he asked, not turning around. "I will be." That was all we said. There was no need for more. I walked the length of the bar, fingers brushing along the edge of the wood I'd sanded down myself last spring. I'd picked this deep, dark oak, stained it by hand, smoothed over every groove with a care I hadn't shown myself in years. It was uneven in places. There was a knot in the grain right near where the tap started, a soft imperfection I'd grown fond of. Like a scar the room wore proudly. I sat on one of the stools and stared out at the room like I was seeing it for the first time. The way the light came through the front windows, dusty and slow. The way the chairs were still flipped on the tables like sleeping animals. The quiet was sacred. Oh, I'd missed this. The stillness, the before. And then the door opened. I didn't need to look. I knew it was her, Amanda. She moved with a sharpness I could feel in my back before I saw her face. Always like she was walking into a fight she'd already decided to win. She stopped just a few feet from me, coat unzipped, eyes unreadable. I didn't know this place opened before 5, she said, voice tight, like she was trying to sound casual and failing. We do, I replied without turning. Whose island? Then I was coming to apologize, sort of. I turned to her then, she looked tired, or maybe I was just seeing her without the blur of nostalgia for once. Her hair was tied up messily, no makeup, jaw clenched in that way it always was when she felt backed into a corner. She sat on the stool next to me, slowly, like she was waiting for permission. You didn't respond to my text, she said. I didn't answer. I was drunk, she offered. As I know. She was quiet again. Then, why didn't you say anything that night when I said what I said? Why didn't you tell me? I looked at her for a long time, really looked. And in that moment I saw it, not anger, not pride, not even guilt, just confusion, like she still didn't get it. Because it wasn't about proving something to you, I said. It never was. Her eyes flashed with something, annoyance maybe, or discomfort. Come on, you have to admit it's a little weird. You owning a bar, I mean, when did that even happen? 18 months ago. Seriously. I nodded. I bought it the year after we split. She blinked like she didn't know what to do with the timeline, with the fact that it had all happened without her. You didn't tell anyone. No, it was mine. I wanted something that was just mine. She scoffed, but it was hollow. You think I was trying to take something from you. You did, I said, voice flat. You took the last place I could hide in plain sight and turned it into a mirror, and then you broke the glass. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She closed it again. You always needed me to be small, I continued. Because if I wasn't, then you'd have to look at the ways you came up short too. She bristled. That's not fair. No, I said, it's not, but it's true. There it was. The confrontation I didn't even know I'd been craving. Not for revenge, not to win, but to finally put language to the thing that had been rotting quietly between my ribs for years. The part of me that twisted itself into knots to please her, to calm her storms, to convince her I was enough. The part of me that never once demanded to be seen. I tried so hard to be what you needed, I said. I let myself disappear in you, and when I couldn't keep up with the version of me you wanted, you called me a failure. She stood up then, eyes burning. That's not what happened. You chose to give up on yourself. No, I said, I chose to survive. I stood too. We were inches apart now, but it felt like miles. And you don't get to walk in here and rewrite the ending. She looked at me, really looked, and something shifted behind her eyes. Maybe it was understanding. Maybe it was the first crack in the story she'd told herself to sleep better at night, that I was weak, that I broke everything, that she was the one who walked away, not the one who drove me to leave. Are you happy? She asked quietly. I'm honest. She nodded once. That's something, I guess. She turned to go. I didn't stop her. The door clicked shut behind her and the silence settled again, but it was different this time. Not hollow, not tense, just clean, like the room had been exorcised. I sat back down, ran my hand over the worn wood of the bar, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for 2 years. She was gone. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to follow. As I wake up earlier now. Not for any noble reason, not for discipline or productivity or some newfound sense of purpose. Mostly because sleep doesn't cling to me the way it used to. It slips off around 6 a.m., leaving me in the blue-gray hush before the city stretches its bones. And that's fine, that's actually Good, I've grown to like the silence, I've grown to need it. I get to the bar just after sunrise. The streets are mostly empty, except for delivery trucks double parked in front of diners and the occasional jogger cutting through shadows like they're running from something quieter than themselves. I pass the same alley where Lewis once found a baby possum under a stack of milk crates. We named it Jerry. I haven't seen it in weeks. Sometimes I wonder if it ever existed or if we just needed something to care about back then. I unlock the bar and step into the morning stillness. This is the best part of the day. No voices, no stories being shouted over drinks, just the soft hum of the fridge, the faint citrus bite of whatever cleaner the overnight shift used, and that worn, familiar creak in the third floorboard behind the bar. It's mine, all of it, not in the greedy, chest-thumping way, more like a quiet possession, like a scar I no longer hide. I don't drink behind the bar anymore, not even the casual end-of-day pour. I keep a notebook under the register now. Black, spiral-bound, nothing fancy. I write in it when I'm alone. Fragments, mostly overheard conversations, dreams I half remember, the sound of her voice when she used to say my name softly like it was something she missed. I don't write for anyone, not for publication, not for closure. Just to take the weight off my ribs and put it somewhere else for a while. Sometimes I sketch instead. It started with people at the bar, their posture, their expressions, the way loneliness shows up in body language, then faces I made up, then her face, once, maybe twice, then not again. Lewis comes in around 10. We don't talk much, we don't need to, we've always had a rhythm. He's the kind of person who can exist in a space without taking it over. Some days we talk about movies, some days about nothing at all. Once we talked about grief, not in the obvious way, just about how it lingers, how it hides in music and grocery store aisles and Sunday mornings, how healing doesn't mean absence, just less sharp edges. Well, Amanda hasn't come back. I don't expect her to. I think we both knew in that moment we'd finally unhooked ourselves from each other. The version of her I held on to, the one I thought I needed to be whole, she was gone long before the final blow. I just didn't want to believe it. She texted again weeks later, just 3 words. I see now. I stared at it for a long time, then I deleted it. Not out of anger, not to make a point, just because I didn't need it anymore. Sometimes I still feel echoes of her, not just Amanda, all of it, that life, that weight. A certain song will play or I'll catch a scent in the air, coconut shampoo and smoke, and it'll knock the wind out of me for a second. But I don't spiral anymore, I just pause, let it move through, let it go. The past doesn't need to be rewritten, it just needs to be left where it is. And I'm learning slowly that I don't need to be louder to be heard, I don't need to be seen to exist. Some days the quiet is enough, some days it's everything. The regulars still come in, Steve and the dart guy, the woman who always orders 1 drink and leaves before the ice melts. They don't know the story, not all of it, maybe bits whispered between glasses, that's okay. The truth doesn't always need an audience. What matters is this. I stayed. I rebuilt. I didn't disappear. And no one gets to rewrite that. The bar's not perfect. It still leaks when it rains too hard, the bathroom door still sticks. The jukebox skips every 7th track, but it's real and it's mine. And every nick in the wood, every stain on the floor, every quiet morning before the city wakes, it means something. It means I made it through. Not unscathed, but whole enough to start again. And maybe that's what healing really is. Not forgetting, not forgiving too easily. Just learning how to carry what remains without letting it crush you. Some days I still look at the door. But not for her. Just for what's next.